morning, everybody. Just a quick announcement here. Over the last couple of days, we lost a couple of data sources that I used to feed agweather.com. I've got them fixed, but I'm still having a couple of issues with a couple of them. So I want to let you know that if you're using my website, there might be a few of the products that are a bit off today. I'm going to work most of the day on getting a lot of this repaired and fixed. So just wanted to keep you up to date on that. My first real map for you today, though, is this one. It's an elevation map of Mexico. And I'm going to talk about a very specific pass in the mountain chains in southern Mexico, right in through here. You see there is this gap right in through here in elevation. And what you can get through this gap is this incredibly powerful wind. They call it a Tehuano wind that can come from a cold front that sneaks through the Bay of Campeche. So this is out of the Gulf of Mexico and is forced to accelerate through this gap. Now, later on this year, we're going to watch for this quite a bit because a lot of times when a deep front gets through the Gulf of Mexico and gets into the Bay of Campeche and makes it through this gap, I mean, the winds really crank through this area. It is often a precursor to an active setup in the southern plains, mid-south, southeast, eastern United States storm system track, okay? But right now, what I want you to see is that the winds that have went racing through this gap have actually fed into Tropical Storm Nora. So this is the flow we're talking about. See the winds screaming through the gap right here, and they're actually getting pulled out on the backside and wrapping themselves around Tropical Storm Nora. Now, Nora is going to become a very important part of our weather story next week, not only for Mexico, but also into the central United States. I want to show you where it's expected to be over the next 5 days. So they are expecting it to bounce up here into possibly a major hurricane, Category 3 in strength, but weaken as it gets up to the Baja and eventually comes into Mexico. But what we really want to think about here is as this moves farther to the north, why is it getting pulled into Mexico, and where will the moisture from Nora eventually make it? Or Norma eventually make it. So let's have a discussion about that here in a few moments. But before I get there, since we're talking about tropical systems, I want to take you back and show you where the system that just moved through Montana yesterday started. This is kind of fun. So I'm going to give you this view. Let's kind of blow this up a little bit. There we go. This is the wind field. Several days going back. We can go back a little farther. I'll take you all the way back here to, let's go maybe to the 8th. Yeah. See this right here? This is a typhoon in the West Pacific. Now, I want you to watch. I need you to keep your eye right here as I tap forward in this so you can see where this particular system is going to go. Now, you watching? Okay, so as I tap forward, I did 3 there, so it's sitting right here by the time we get to the 9th. Through the 10th, now into the 11th, and we'll stop it out here on the 12th. It's here. Now, did you see it's already curved itself to the north in the West Pacific? And it's about to join the westerlies. Now, you're going to have to watch it very carefully because as we go from the 12th into the 13th and into the 14th, it's here. And it's getting pulled into this jet streak on the 15th and 16th, and it's now contributing to this extratropical low back on the 15th of October. Now, as I play it forward, it then gets pulled into the much deeper trough that's in the Gulf of Alaska here by the 16th. And as we work our way into the 17th, and I know you're not really able to see it, but by the 17th, it was sitting here. And as we work our way into yesterday, it's coming over the top of this and contributing to this system that went through Montana. Now, we just traced this back, what is that, 10 days. So it was once a tropical system here. They got curved north, pulled into the flow, developed into this deep trough, and right now, well, yesterday, was sitting here. And the winds from that typhoon contributed. They're not still the same winds, but they contributed to the flow that produced this. Now, this is from the National Weather Service, so I'm going to be able to show this. But this is a video they shot in Montana yesterday of some of the incredibly strong winds that were observed there. And those winds at times were gusting well over 60 miles an hour. Massive dust storm out of this, and just a pretty rough go of it. Now, this is from Roosevelt County, and so this again from the National Weather Service at Glasgow. So I appreciate them posting this all for us to use on their public account. Now, that same system today, let's go to it here, is this one, moving through the northern plains of the United States and is expected to continue to press east and then develop into a much bigger system very soon here in the east coast of the United States, specifically the northeast. It's got a pretty well-defined and sharp front. See it right there? And that one's diving down, really changing wind direction and dropping temperatures off. There's still stronger winds with this. Today we're watching on the all hazards map, this region in through parts of South Dakota where they do have, the high wind advisories as this system continues to go forward. And if you're curious, this is what we expect the wind field from this system to look like. It's an animation of maximum accumulated wind gusts. And what we're seeing as this system kind of moves its way east by the time we get into Friday is that the plains today, Midwest later today, tomorrow, and then the east later on this week are expected to get winds in the 30 to 45 plus mile an hour range at times, especially right here in the plains of the United States. So we're going to have to watch that pretty carefully. Now, this did deliver some rainfall, and you can see here on the last 48 hours, the system came into the northwest. It then did this last night, and this morning, it's still pushing through farther to the east as we watch one system exit. So that's kind of the setup of the systems we've got going on right now. All right, what do we expect this to do? Well, I'm at the end of the animation. Let's go back to the beginning. The high-res NAM, which is still one of my models that's working, looks like this. So we're going to watch that front slide through Iowa. The low curl up over Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Main frontal boundary by tonight is ripping right here through parts of northern Illinois, through about Quincy, and down here toward Springfield and Joplin. And we just play this forward through Thursday morning. It moves all the way to Michigan, Indiana, western Kentucky, Tennessee. The backside slides through Illinois, Wisconsin. And then this is the low later this week as the frontal boundary hits the Appalachian Mountains by 5 a.m. on Friday morning. It begins to curl up into a much deeper system. So I'll be excited to kind of watch where this one's going to go here during that time. If you're curious, total rainfall from the high-res NAM, these are not high rainfall amounts. So we will have a couple of areas that are capable of picking up closer to an inch, possible. But overall, this one's starved for moisture, and it's moving relatively quickly, so it doesn't have a lot of time to just sit there and dump a lot of rain. Okay, bigger picture things. You ready? This is that top-down view on the North Pole of the troughs and ridges we've been watching. We've made a case for this deep trough to develop over the west by this weekend. Here it is. So what's going on between then? I'm sorry, I was kind of just watching the flow here. We've got big ridge building again this week in the west. This is the trough that's going to kick off the sizable system in the east. So heat west, cold east. We're actually going to watch a frost event out of that trough here in the east. This is by Saturday. And then by Sunday, there's our high over low. And what's going to happen is we're going to watch these two troughs to help develop themselves, like they complementary deepen each other along the west coast Monday into Tuesday. Excuse me. Now, as we get out there to Tuesday, I want to show you something. There's one trough, and there's the other. Now, we talked about the tilt of them working together, one pulling the other one farther to the north. But I want to show you something. We looked at what I call what everybody calls deprogdity, the change in prognosis with time. And what we're going to see here is that if you compare today's model run to the one I showed you in yesterday's video, this is what oops, sorry. We got a new model run here, so we can't go back all the way to that one. But I want to show you, let's just go back to the 12Z yesterday. This has weakened overall in its strength. So this was yesterday, this is today, and it's not nearly as strong as it was on the 0Z runs from yesterday morning. So what we're going to see here is that this next system that comes through, while it still dips a huge trough in the west, may not have the same kind of potency to deliver all that cold air and make a massive snowstorm in the plains or Midwest. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at this from our multi-model perspective. That takes you out 10 days here. Just go ahead and have a look at it. Now, I apologize. I have to show you this on Weatherbelt. I love Weatherbelt's graphics, but I like to show my own. But again, I was having problems with the models this morning on my server. We'll get them straightened out and get them fixed. But this is the GFS solution. So here's Norma. There's the system we're going to watch curl up in the east by Friday into Saturday. Big low here, a lot of rain in New England, and behind it, some pretty chilly air. Now, Norma, okay, the moisture from Norma is going to get staged right into this area. Now, this again is only showing precipitation, but the moisture from Norma is going to be in this region. And by the time we get into Sunday, that deep low is coming into the west. And here it is, Norma's moisture getting pulled around this lead low, according to the GFS, coming out of Colorado, going into Nebraska, fed on the high pressure on the back side of it, just pumping in some Gulf moisture. Now, that's the lead trough. Remember, there's the one to the south that gets pulled out, then the deeper one's the one to the north. What has weakened is the one to the south. So what this does is this sends this broader shield of precipitation toward the toward the Great Lakes. And there'll be a frontal boundary that we're going to watch all of this right on, a warm frontal boundary. Now the main low on the backside comes in here, and it's going to produce some very strong winds throughout Montana. Look at that spacing here. Some upslope flow in Montana, hence the snow, and then a big cyclone that comes out of the midsection of the country. So deeper wave here, lead wave there. They're working together to produce an upper level low here, and we're going to see the surface low emerge after it. So you see, lead wave leaves, taking with it NORA's moisture. Secondary wave comes in on the back side by next Thursday, and then that one races on off toward like Duluth. So it basically goes from central Colorado to Duluth, Minnesota. And that's the one we're going to keep an eye on. Now, the operational GFS run, the one we're looking at here, is trying to put down quite a bit of snow with this one. We'll take a look at those snowfall totals in just a second. But what I want to do now is I want to show you the European model version of this. So let's go back and watch these same events. Sorry, got to get back to the 0Z run. Here we go. So here's the low curling through the Great Lakes tomorrow, curling up into New England by Friday into Saturday, delivering all the heavier rain this weekend. There's a little secondary push of moisture coming in behind it. There's Norma. So as we get into Saturday, through Saturday into Sunday, now we're out into Monday, we see that same big high pressure cell develop here. We're going to watch Norma's moisture. There it is. See it getting pulled into this system, and there's that same setup next week. So the secondary wave back here, the lead wave trying to pull this moisture out into this area. It is slower. It is slower in the ECMWF, and therefore the waves are better timed. So by next Thursday, the system comes out, and you notice there's not so much blue on this map. So the European model, midweek next week, produces the same upslope flow, strong winds in Montana, and then rips this system across the midsection of the country, delivering some heavy rainfall to some areas we've been discussing that have been so dry. And then it pulls this by the time we get into day 10 into New England, and there's a big shot of cold air coming in behind this. Okay, well, what did the models say in terms of snowfall? That's the 10-day outlook from the GFS. Now, we got a new run when I started this. The GFS runs very fast, so the 0Z run is what you're looking at here, total snow. But we also have the new 6Z run in. And holy smokes, did the 6Z run kind of just take its morning dose of steroids. I mean, look at this. It is just trying to crank off huge snows. But remember what we learned about yesterday. These are all out there past day 8. This is late next week, and the models are flip-flopping on it. So you ready? Let's take you out there to day 10. This is the newest run, or excuse me, the 0Z run. This is the newest run. This is the 0Z. This is the 18Z before it. This was yesterday's 12Z, nothing. Look at that, nothing in the 12Z. And going back to 6Z, excuse me, the day before, this is what we've got. I apologize, I'm fighting off a cold today, and don't feel too great. But you can really just, I just love this. Like the models, they flop around. So that's why you have to be careful, because I guarantee you in about a half hour from now, somebody on Facebook or Insta or whatever social media is going to post this and go massive blizzard for North Dakota. And we just know that that's only one run that produced it. Now, what about the European model? This is the newest we got from the European model. They just had the 6Z run coming in. So let's go back to 0Z. 10 days out, that's what it's got for snow. So along the border. So you see how there's so much still uncertain about this system? It's changed considerably in the last 12 hours in terms of its potential strength, and that's what we watch. So that's the 12Z run from yesterday. Similar path, more snow in the Rockies, but there's still a lot to be learned about this system. So we can do that by looking at ensembles, right? So this is the chance of getting an inch. And I still feel very confident that there's going to be some strong upslope flow from Alberta into Montana and Wyoming. What comes out in the plains or what lines itself along the U.S.-Canada border, there's still some uncertainty. But right now we're getting better than a 70% chance of an inch into this area. Where's the really heavy snow? Well, this is the probability through the next 10 days of ½ a foot. So this, I think, is the best look because the GFS has bounced around so much. I'm going to rely on the European ensemble as maybe our best guidance here today. What is sure, I mean, what we're feeling very confident about is that all of the ensembles are tossing out that system into the Midwest next week. And that is why the European model, the GFS, and the CPC all have above average precipitation in the central United States going into next week when that system emerges. It's also going to do a lot to our temperature pattern. Now, right now, we're expecting behind this system this weekend for a lot of colder air to sneak into the Northeast. And this will be a frost event everywhere that you see gray on this map, which could get into parts of Indiana and Ohio and along the Appalachian Mountains and into Pennsylvania. That coldest air is coming in next Monday and then next Tuesday. So there's Monday and Tuesday of next week. That's when the coldest air is. But you can see that this major warm-up out ahead of the next big system is going to be supplying the instability. It's going to be supplying the risk of locally heavy rainfall, and it's going to be supplying the contrast we need to get some really strong winds in the central United States. So that's it. That's your buildup. Now to get you there, I want to show you the high temperatures, because here's today's forecast high temperatures. This is getting into tomorrow on Thursday. Look at the heat in the west. This is Friday. Wow. I mean, we have some places here approaching 25 degrees above average. Still cool in the southeast, but look at this heat. This is Friday, getting into Saturday and Sunday. So this is when the low curls up here. But we know next Monday and Tuesday that warm sector opens. Now remember, there's high pressure here. So there's cold on this side, warmth on that side, and the front's going to line up right in through there on which this next deep low that's going to come out here, and then it's going to come out through here, line up and run. So that's the setup for a week from now. We're still out there that far. As you can imagine, behind it, the temperature contrast is going to be quite stark. Ready? Next 5 days here, day 5 through 10. Now watch, day 10 through 15. Substantial cold air coming in from the Canadian prairie, invading the central United States. And we're going to wait for the pattern to reset after this. We're still in week on, week off. And the pattern is open and moving despite the big block that's going to make this happen. I still think it continues to flow across North America, and that's what we're kind of keeping an eye on here. Now, I'm preparing a new long range for later on this Friday, so we'll get some of that discussion going later this week. But I wanted to show you what's going on in South America. Today's 0Z run from the European model, we're adding up total precipitation from the European model. Over the next 5 days, it's just heavy rain down here in Santa Catarina, parts of Paraguay, and northern Rio Grande do Sul and parts of southern Parna. But notice the heavier rains expected to come into Argentina. We've talked a lot about this dryness in this area, so to see some rain in there is good, but nothing, I mean, really forecast for Mato Grosso outside of just scattered showers. Same thing for northeastern Brazil. But the models, as we get out there later in the time period, so this is a week out, this is getting out to day 10, are starting to fill some of this in. And the new ensemble forecast looking out there 2 weeks shows better rainfall in through this area, driest up here almost in the Amazon. So we were expecting this dry time period here, which could slow down planting, but I think it's going to recover once we get later into the month, into the month of November. But really wet down here in the south, this is going to continue to cause problems, and look at the increase in rainfall in Argentina. So a lot of things to be considering as we start to analyze where this new long-range forecast is going. Again, I'll release that to you on Friday, but I hope you all have a great rest of your week and get prepared for this system next week. Thanks.